Hello again everyone, and today we're looking at a totally brand new lens. Sigma are continuing their unrelenting mission to take over the world with oversized professional f1.4 camera lenses, and they cover yet another focal length now with their new 28mm f1.4 Art for full-frame digital SLR cameras or mirrorless cameras if you adapt it on. It will be available in Canon, Nikon or Sigma mounts, and the price in the UK will be £1,099. That translates to probably around €1,200 or US dollars, so on the expensive side. And I'd like to thank Sigma UK for loaning me a copy of this lens for testing for a little while, although as usual this is a totally independent review. I'll be taking a look at its strengths and weaknesses. 28mm on a full frame camera is a standard wide angle. It's not tight enough to give you any emphasis on your subject really, nor wide enough to stretch the corners of your images at all. It gives you very neutral looking images. For some people that's exactly what they want, for others it's a little boring. I'm not a huge fan of 28mm myself, but that's just me. I can definitely see the use of a 28mm prime lens, and this one's maximum aperture of f1.4 adds another dimension to its potential uses. Outer focus backgrounds at 28mm look nice and gentle, and of course that bright aperture lets in tons of light for shooting in darker situations. On APS-C cameras, it's the full frame equivalent of 42mm, a bit more interesting really, giving you slightly tighter images. This could be an amazing standard lens for APS-C camera owners. The depth of field will look slightly deeper of course on an APS-C camera as usual, the equivalent of about f2.2, still really nice though. Okay, let's look at the build quality. It's completely what we're used to for a Sigma Art prime lens, frankly, really excellent. It weighs a couple of pounds, just under a kilogram. It's weather sealed and strong and metallic feeling. The focus ring is rubberized and turns very smoothly and has full-time manual focusing. I found the autofocus motor to be quick, quiet and quite accurate, both on my Canon 6D and when mounted onto my Sony cameras using Sigma's own MC11 lens adapter. One thing to bear in mind is that this lens does not have image stabilization. The filter size is a large but quite standardized 77mm wide. It comes with a nice lens hood with a little locking switch. That's a new one for me on a Sigma lens, and it also comes with one of Sigma's awesome foam lens cases, which I love. I attach them to my belt when shooting weddings. Overall, it's typically fantastic build quality here for a Sigma Art lens. Alright then, image quality. This is one of the few lenses which I'm not going to bother testing on my 20MP full frame camera because we can see everything we really need to know from my 42MP results. Here it is, adapted onto my Sony a7R II with Sigma's official MC11 lens adapter, which worked with the lens really nicely by the way. In the middle of the image we see very high resolution but only average contrast. The corners look brilliantly sharp though, what a great result there. f2 sees a little more contrast in those corners and a brilliantly punchy image back in the middle. f2.8 is only a tiny bit better in the middle and in the corners, but f4 is very slightly sharper again. It stays this sharp down to f8, but will start getting a little softer if you stop down from here. So on full frame we see fantastic image quality straight from f1.4 really, not totally perfect, but definitely brilliant. How about image quality on a 24MP APS-C camera? At f1.4, the middle of the image is brilliant again, despite the 24MP APS-C sensor being a bit more demanding here. The corners are slightly softer though. They stay about the same down to f2.8, although contrast is a touch better when stopped down, but stop down to f4 and there's an extra punch of resolution over in those corners. Here's the middle of the image again now, in case you're interested, pretty impressive. It'll stay this sharp until you stop down to about f11 or so. So it really is a great show for this lens on APS-C, although that edge of perfection we saw on full frame has slipped away a bit. Let's take a look now at distortion and vignetting on a full frame camera. We see slight bevel distortion being projected here, about the usual for a 28mm full frame lens. At f1.4 those corners look very dark though, as you'd expect. They're improved at f2 and stopped down to f2.8 for even illumination into those corners. This lens can focus as closely as about 26cm from your subject, not bad for a wide-angle prime lens. At f1.4, the close-up image quality is slightly soft. Stop down to f2 though to get back to perfection, so try to do that when you're shooting close-up. Let's see how it works against bright lights. We actually see quite a lot of flaring here, but the thing is, it's really gentle, so you might spot it in your images from time to time, but it won't be very bothersome. Finally, bokeh. No problems here at all, as we've come to expect from Sigma's Art lenses. When you open up that aperture, you get out-of-focus backgrounds that look lovely and soft. Related to bokeh is longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f1.4 here, you can see a slightly strong level of purple highlighting in the foreground and green in the background. Stop down to f2 to see it reduced. Overall, well, if 28mm is for you, then look no further. This Sigma lens is about as good as you're going to get, really. Well, Zeiss do make a manual focus Otus equivalent lens, which might be very slightly better, which only costs £5,000. Considering that this autofocus Sigma lens will cost 5 times less, it easily comes recommended.